Hello everyone, I'm Grim, a freelance artist, and if you were inspired to learn to draw from anime or comics like I was, then learning to paint digitally might elude you for years like it did for me. Why you want to learn to paint digitally might vary, from wanting to work in the industry to simply wanting to stretch your style. However, a lot of people also look down on more stylized art styles that aren't as realistic out of a misguided belief that they don't require as much skill to make. It's super common for more popular games and shows to use these beautiful painted styles that feel realistic even when the characters are stylized and larger than life. However, if you do art, you know that the opposite is actually true. A stylized art style still follows a lot of rules of realistic rendering by carefully choosing what parts to represent and what rules to bend or break. And that skill is something that once you learn how to digital paint, you can leverage to make gorgeous stylized artwork that has realistic lighting. If you need proof of stylized art that still uses realistic rendering, take a look at media like Arcane, World of Warcraft, Hollow Knight, and Peak. They still have these gorgeous styles based in realism and detailed rendering that makes their fantastical settings feel more real, but they are clearly not exact representations of real life. Which is where knowing cartoony stylization and starting from that point will help you stand out. So, if you want to start learning to digital paint without abandoning your stylized art style, I'll tell you about the 3 tips that helped me get started. Tip number 1, use your cel shading as a base. You should still use your cel shading style as a base when you want to start rendering in a more painterly style. The fundamentals you have from cel shading will get you started on working from the big details down to medium and then to small. When I start a piece that I plan to paint, I honestly find it extremely helpful to still block in a messy cel-shaded version. This will help you get your 3D forms right and avoid any confusion whether something really should be in light or shadow. At this stage, you don't need to worry about reflected light, ambient occlusion, none of the nitty-gritty of lighting. You just use your cel-shading skills to determine what's in light and what's in shadow. The next tip I have is to learn to manage your edges. If you've never heard of this before, managing your edges is deciding what edges are hard, soft, or lost edges. That is the parts where light and shadow meet. All of them are pretty much exactly what they sound like. Hard edges are a hard transition between light and shadow, often created by a hard surface or dramatic changes in plane. Think of like a plastic cube, for example. Soft edges are more gradual transitions between light and shadow, often made by soft surfaces and slow changes in plane. That could be something like a fuzzy, fur-covered orb. And then there's lost edges, where the difference between local color and light/shadow are nearly identical, so they blend together. Local color, for reference, is just the color of something without being affected by extra lights. By taking your cel shading and adjusting the edges of them, you'll get to keep the solid structure you built with your cel shading, but also start to convey the different materials present in your illustration. And that is the key to rendering we'll get into next. Tip number 3, learn a few basic textures. The texture of something is what a material is made of and feels like to touch, which means it also affects how light reflects off of it and therefore how you should render it. take some time to do some studies. I recommend at the bare minimum to learn how to render shiny, polished metals, and all the way at the other end, soft, fluffy fur. I feel like those two textures have been the most useful for me personally to know, as a lot of things are somewhere in between those two on the spectrum of relative hard to softness in terms of edges. You can adapt what you know about rendering metal to use on glass, crystal, even glassy wet eyes. And on the other side of the coin, if you can render soft, fluffy fur, that will translate well to hair and fabric. And that's everything that helped me get started with figuring out digital painting. Besides, well, jumping in and doing it. If you want to go into a lot more detail with digital painting, I would highly recommend Marco Bucci's 10 Minutes to Better Painting series. That series is the one that finally helped me wrap my head around painting, and his examples and explanations are so intuitive and clear. I feel like I still have a lot to learn about painting personally, but I know how long it took me to finally understand how to start and to build a process I like. So, I hope that this video has helped you skip some muddling around in the dark that I did, and that the further watching recommendations help you really get a handle on things. That series will also be linked in the description below. And thank you so much for watching. If you did learn something or enjoy yourself, consider liking or subscribing. That's how you tell YouTube that this video does not, in fact, deserve to be buried in the depths of the infinite abyss of the internet. And I don't usually plug it here, but if you are interested in being able to personally pick my brain or see more of my own creative processes, I have a Patreon. As little as $1 every month will get you access to high-resolution, unwatermarked versions of my art, including the stuff you see in my videos, and layered files upon request. $3 and up will net you custom sketch requests every month, and $15 and up means you get to ask me for redlining and critique once a month. All of that can be found at the link in the description or at patreon.com/grimvestige. Anyway, thank you for sticking around for me to hawk my wares to you. And with that, I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye!